Hey, welcome to a new episode of Podcast with Abhash. As you know, in this podcast, we talk with amazing guests and hear the amazing stories. And just for people who are new to the channel, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. All the information are in the description below. So, as we said, we talk with amazing guests and hear their interesting stories. For today, I have really amazing person for you to listen to. He's an old brother of mine. He's Tashi Bista, and he has amazing stories to tell.
Hi, thank you, Abhash, for having me.
I did not know like what you did. Like I saw you like to be honest, I was looking at through the History Channel videos, and I was looking at one of the documentary about Nepal and old statues, and those statues being sold off as stolen and sold off to the international market. And all of a sudden, I see you like come up and giving an interview, and you were talking about like preserving those heritages, and I'm like, wait a moment, I know this guy. I know this guy. This is Tashi. Like we grew up together. We were in school together when we were kids, and he's doing an amazing job now. Like, Tashi, can you please tell me, like, okay, let's talk about what do you actually do now?
Cool. So, yes, Abbas, it's been a while. It feels like past life since we like spent time at school together, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been like what 20 years or so.
Okay.
So, right now, to answer your question, right now, I'm working as primarily as a film producer. So I have been focusing on documentary films to tell stories about issues that I see in the places that I have lived, and that being mostly in Mustang and also in general all around Nepal, and also some places in Ladak in northwest India. So I've been primarily working as a producer, but then on the other hand, while I'm not doing that, I work as a public relation manager for a nonprofit that me and my wife founded back in 2011. So it has been working on conservation and humanitarian issues in Ladakh, in Jammu and Kashmir of India. So yeah, that's most of what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So you're film. You produce film videos, or you produce videos for Natural Geography and so on. Like
So no, not exactly. So I don't. I do pitch my own stories on issues that I think would be worth visually documenting, and spreading to a broader mass. So I do have my stories come out as produced as films, like documentary films. But mostly, so far, mostly it's been happening that I work as a producer for film companies that want to make documentary films in Nepal or in India,
Okay.
So I just manage like logistics, and I manage like we often play with the editorial. The whole pitch, the story casting, and we like work together on it, and then I manage all the realization of the movie on the ground, and like translations and editing work and all that.
Okay.
So it's not always my stories that I get to produce. It often it's so far it's like a share of my stories and issues that I want to document, and film companies coming to me that they want to produce this film that they have already planned and designed, and I just work on it, and then we work together, go to the ground, and like I handle all of the things on the ground. Yeah.
Okay. So beside as you said, you work on logistics and all the technical aspects of like an international film production company coming to work in Nepal and those locations that you're familiar with. So you have your professional work is on those side. But as I said before, like I saw you working as a preserving all those natural artifacts, statues, and so on. So like is that the part that you were saying you and your wife were working on as a preserving those things?
So me and my wife have started we run a non-profit organization that does mainly that used to mainly do art conservation. It started with art conservation, and then it extended to humanitarian issues. And so that the thing that you saw on that Al Jazeera documentary was not a part of the project that me and my wife directly do, but because we do that in general, art preservation. When I get time to go back to Mustang, I go and I try to do volunteer on as many things as I can. So one of them was being like, trying to do some things on like documenting this disappearing of local heritage, like art and artifacts and things like this. That has been going on forever, and it's not just Mustang; it's just all over Nepal. So I had always wanted to do something about it. For me, it was this thing that was that had been like like almost kind of itchy, that you feel like the project that I did with Al Jazeera on documenting the theft of ancient art in Mustang was something that I grew I kind of grew up with this kind of situations, because when we were young, like one of the earliest like bad stories kind of that I had heard was that thieves came in and robbed a monastery and killed monks and like stabbed people and whatnot, And when you grow up with that, like, I'm not trying to exaggerate that it was very emotionally difficult, but every now and then when you think of it, when it comes to your mind, you feel the more you grow up, the more you become capable as a person of many different things, the more sense of guilt you feel of not having done anything about it. So it was something that was lingering since a while. So I decided I had been working for a while, and then finally I managed that I could have a documentary team and then film the whole situation. I mean, like, what I did was just for the part of Mustang, and it was very like what the documentary project shows is a very general like easy scene, because that's how documentaries are made, right? You need to make that it's easy for people to grasp. If you put too much details, like people might not get it too easily. So it was very general, but it's a very complicated issue, of course.
So let's talk about like what actually did you do? So from the documentary, I'll put that documentary information on the description below as well in our link. But like from what I got was, as you are a native of Mustang, you were born in Mustang, and you know the culture and everything about Mustang, and the thieves and all of the horrible people were stealing your culture heritage, stealing your all of the statues and precious, like those don't even come in worth with how much the money it is worth, because those are priceless things. So those were being stolen in front of your eyes, like the way you are growing up, and you hear stories about people being killed, the priest being killed because they were protecting it. The thieves come and steal it, take it away, and the Mustang and the culture heritage of stories of Mustangs gets smaller and smaller because they steal it. So you are left with priceless things, and you're trying to protect it. And as you said, because you were you were a native and you are in a position to do something. So like what I got from the documentary was that you were keeping a record of those statues, so that it will be scientifically or more like precisely documented of what those are, where those come from, and what what significance it holds for your culture. And it would not be like, if somebody does steal it, you would have a record of like, okay, say like in America and any other places, there are many statues that have been stolen, and so that you would have a word to say like, this has been documented. So if you steal it, that's where it came from, right?
Exactly. So to start at your question on the beginning, I mean, like your comment. Firstly, it's not like outsiders are coming to steal our culture. It's always locals. One thing very certain: every project that you do, the people who come to steal, who want to steal all those ancient artifacts, they run a project, of course. So a project of looting. So there's definitely local people. It's our local people. Some of somebody within the Mustang people who are involved, and we're in most of the cases people who have a good reach in the local power play, and people who can facilitate like extreme logistics and whatnot. So it's local people who are involved in looting Mustang's heritage. So that has been happening for a very long time, and I always wanted to do something about it. And like, of course, I haven't been able to do much about it. For us, all I'm doing right now, which is the most immediate important thing that we can do, is to, like you mentioned, is to document all these, because the situation in not only in Nepal, in so many countries, like with artifact looting is that when something gets stolen, you cannot claim it back unless you have a proof to show that it belongs to you. And in that, that proof has to be a written or a photographic evidence of videographic evidence, right? So that is absent in most of the cases in Nepal.
Those
and that's
are
how
like ancient stuff. Like people don't go and just make a record of them like previously, maybe like 10 years until like whenever like our technology advanced. But those had been being stolen from hundreds of years ago. So
yeah, hundreds of years ago, and then a lot of this looting started in the like from what I know, I'm not an expert on this, like, but from the information that I've gathered, like a lot of the looting started since the 50s, you know, and like 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s were peak, like peak in Nepal in a lot of these places. So Nepal and also India both have laws that you cannot take away, you cannot transport or trade artifacts that are more than 100 years old. So the fact that, one thing you can be certain about is that all of these artifacts that are in museums in New York, in Paris, London, like Brussels, many places, you know, they have an unclear evidence as to how they have traveled there, right? So we cannot just like blindly claim that they're all looted artifacts, but it is suspicious on how these artifacts have managed to travel that far. So so that's why inventories are so important, to record these photographic evidences, make a database, so that at least, because today there's no protection at all, no matter how much amount of security, like physical protection cameras, whatnot, you can put at monasteries and heritage sites, there's still chances, like some people want to make away with something, like it's not so difficult. So the only evidence you could have towards that is, I mean, like the only prevention, more like a solution to act as what happens when a thing is looted, artifact is looted, is to have photographic evidence, and then you can contact local law enforcement agencies, local customs or national customs, and circulate pictures to law enforcement at customs, to Interpol, or to international websites that register stolen arts, you know. So that would be one very important thing to do. So that's what we did in the monastery next to my village, which has a lot of artifacts.
Yeah. So you basically make a record of all of those statues as much as you can. Can you tell me, like, do you basically make it on the website that you put up yourself, or is it like how do you put the records of those things?
No. So for me, I wanted to do something like this similar, but I did not know how, right? So me and my wife, we did a lot of that in many monasteries in Ladakh. There's in Ladakh region in India, and then next to it, there's another more remote region called Zanskar. So we went around in a lot of monasteries that invited us, and we documented a lot of artifacts. So we have that, and then I thought, like, why not do it in our village? But right then, that was quite a few years ago, actually. I don't remember very precisely, but this was 5 or 6 years ago. There are some very expert art historians and, like, you know, people who have studied art a lot. Like, so there was a very prominent art historian who suggested that I should do that, but I didn't have the means to do that. So and then later on it happened that he was coming over to do that. So I very happily, willingly volunteered and then helped him. And then we convinced the elders and the monks of my village that this is very, very important, because this is such a sensitive issue. You know, like, monks don't want to like show their artifact. The problem is people feel like, oh, if somebody takes a photo, then it can get stolen. And that is true, because in the past there have been people who have been circulating photos, giving it to thieves, asking them to get those things for them, you know, and that would happen. So that's why people were scared. But now it can be used as a solution. So we convinced them that how important this was. So we documented so it's not on websites or anything, it's just private records. So for now, we have a documentation of that. And then the art historian I worked with, and we like keep a mutual record, some sort of, and then the monastery gets a record, and then we keep copies that can be easily circulated in case something goes wrong. Like, you know, the village has a record.
Is there a digital copy of it?
Well, not yet. Like, it's quite sensitive to be digital, because the monks don't totally agree that it should be publicly available right away, you know. So for now,
at least
we have
for
Digital hard copies,
Yeah.
digital hard copies, but not public.
Not public.
It's not public. Yeah.
So at least if something gets stolen, that would be a
Mhm.
photographic or digital hard copy of those written documents that actually proves that those were in their from which location they were from and what's the historical
Yeah.
significance it holds. So,
Exactly, but that's a very complicated thing. You see, so to understand a statue
mhm.
is a lot of studies. You know,
Yeah.
like people have not many people understand how old a statue is, what kind of like art style it is. Like, you know, what part of the Himalayas, during what style, like what art. There's a very in-depth study on it. I'm not no expert on this thing, you know, but I do understand to some extent. So so we have records on all this, like height, length, everything, all measurements, and then dimensions, and then like any inscriptions if there are, what statue this is of, what deity, and everything, you know, what metal.
Are there artists who put their names or anything in those kind of?
In very few cases, yes. In very few cases, in a lot of them, not. So the problem in with art trafficking in a country like Nepal is first thing, how much ever record we have, unless like see, you know how much art is modern art, like art that is made today, yesterday. How much of that is exported out of Nepal? There's a lot, you know. And so to get an artifact out of Nepal, a modern artifact, like some modern statue that was made yesterday, you just need to go to the Department of Archaeology, get an export stamp. They check and say, okay, this thing is good to go because it's just modern artifact as a souvenir, as a gift. So the people at the customs don't know. The people at the Department of Archaeology are so on their knowledge about ancient art. But the people at the customs, the security officers at the customs, they have little knowledge about this because it requires a lot of study to know what kind of style of art, how old, you know. So somebody could say, what I've heard also is that somebody could go show and have a copy of an antique made, get a Department of Archaeology exit stamp for that thing, and when they actually exit, they take the real antique. The people at the customs would have difficulty to find out anything about it. First thing. Second thing, there are cargo companies that facilitate in exporting things, it turns out. So that was revealed in the project that I worked on. So when you have like customs people that monitor cargoes getting out of the country, and people at airports that monitor like people going away with your artifacts, you know, like unless all of these people are like properly trained and like educated on.
And that's hard, like especially for people in airport, like they would not know, they are not archaeologists, they have no idea about the art.
Exactly. It's difficult. That is the biggest challenge to artifacts exiting countries like Nepal and India.
And from your solution, like you went on making those records. Did you find out those to be effective or not? How effective was is that at least the idea of keeping the records? Do you find do you have other ideas how you can preserve those kind of say statues being stolen and sold abroad? What are the different ideas and challenges that you faced?
There is the main challenges would be access, you know, like a lot of heritage sites, religious, cultural heritage sites like monasteries or temples or mosques. They're not very open to directly showing their artifacts. So access is difficult. So because I have no doubts in believing that the more you document, the better.
Yeah.
So first thing, for instance, let's just take for the case of a monastery, for example. There's a person a monk or two monks or often several monks who take turns like once a year. They do that for a whole year or 2 whole years, things like this. They have the keys to the monastery, you know, and they're called konyir. And these guys, every time in some monasteries, they stay on for 3 whole years or 4 years. Sometimes it's one monk or a group of monks. These guys, they have the keys to all the rooms in the monastery.
Yeah.
So the main rooms where the very precious artifacts are stored also. So these guys, when they pass on from one guy to the other, back in the days, it would just be oral.
Yeah.
They would just say like, okay, there's this many here, this kind of statues here. There's this kind of statues here. and then so it has continued without being written transfer for a long time. So now this digital documentation helps them a lot. We have a booklet. They're like, voila, this booklet. This is the list of things that are in our monastery in these rooms. Blah blah blah. So it has been very effective on that grounds. But then the greater effectiveness that it is targeted towards, which is to work as a proof to show that an artifact has been stolen. Once it is stolen, is yet to tell. I mean, like, and like we all like wish that nothing as such happens. But then, if so far, if it happens, I'm sure it would be like a very, very good thing to at least launch an investigation or just file a case, file a police
Have you
case.
ever had like any case filed because of your record, or like have you, like from your years in Mustang, from your time you lived in there, have you ever had like somebody filed a case, international case, a national case about like we had one statue or your artifact stolen, and did you get it back, or like what was the trouble?
No, in Mustang not yet. So in Mustang, it's first to begin with. The context in Mustang is heavily looted. Mustang and Dolpo are like very, very heavily looted. So Mustang and Dolpo have a lot of ancient artifacts starting from the 9th century, like,
and that's like thousands and thousands years old, right?
Yeah, that's like more than 1,000 years old. So like metal, crazy, like copper and bronze statues, like very, very beautiful, like ancient, like 13th century, 14th century, 15th century, 16th century, like scroll paintings, thankas, So Mustang and Dolpo once used to be very rich kingdoms that produced a lot of the production of a lot of such ancient art, right? Back in the days, in those centuries. And so they have been very heavily looted. So from, I've documented a few monasteries in Mustang, but so far there has never been any case, just because the documentation came, we managed to do it, but a little too late. We could say something, but it's a thing about better later than never. So it came too late. A lot of looting has already happened. I wouldn't be surprised if there are still lootings happening. But then so far we have never filed a case, because like in the monasteries that we documented, so far they haven't been lootings after that. But then in other monasteries, I'm sure in other temples, and it's not all just monasteries, it's unattended, like religious cultural monuments, like a stupa. A stupa is unattended. It's just in the middle of the road to pass, give blessings and pass away, like drive away evil spirits, right? So those things have been looted, and then like, so from my records, sorry to cut down to my explanation, answering to your question of, no, from my inventories that we have made, there have been no cases filed.
That's sad. Have you ever had like those kind of people? Like, do you know like who steals those, or are those the people that were like, oh, the people are there in the village, they are just stealing those? Are those people like come from different places, and are they, as you said, they were from Mustang itself? Like people stealing.
So that's a very big question. So for me, I don't have any any confirmed fingers to point saying this person, that person is definitely involved. But as you go where there's smoke, there's fire. Like in villages, in our villages, we have rumors on local people or local, representatives of bigger thieves or whoever. We have local people that a lot of people rumor to have been thieves before, saying like, this guy, they have been working in, and there are many suspicious cases, like some people who were working with certain monuments, like some work had been quite questionable, because there have been lootings happening while people were working on them and things like this, For instance, in the case of Mustang, when there was a time when one of the most important Shorten is a stupa. So one of the most important stupas between these two major villages of Lomantang and Sarang, it got looted. And that looting was declared, like there was a team of local art restorers who were restoring the roof and the outside the painting of the monastery, of the stupa, by camping there. And then it got looted. And then no cases were filed. So there's a lot of local suspicions on, like, for instance, for me and my wife, on any restoration project that we undertake, the first rule when you want to restore something, the first rule is to document the current situation.
Yeah.
So a lot of restoration projects in Mustang are questionable because the restorers haven't documented them, like
Prior.
their condition
Yeah.
when the work started. Yeah, exactly. So that was quite questionable. There have been such
You don't know what, like, if they switched it, the old statue
sorry.
with the new one. You don't know if they switched the old statue with the new one.
Yeah, I mean, that could have totally happened. They could have switched stuff. So we have no confirmed evidences on like what went missing or whatever. But then there are many suspicious cases, and sadly, like, suspicion is not something you can work on, right?
Yeah.
It can definitely take you somewhere, but not to a definite.
You need a proof to
answer.
like say put somebody in jail for those crimes, but
Exactly.
like you're based on
Exactly.
situation, like a suspicion, and they once it's the thing about it is like say a statue which is like 1,000-year old, like might be this one this much, it might be sold in black market for hundreds of thousands of dollars or even more. And that can be like, just imagine, like some are big statues, but mostly the stolen statues are pretty small, right? You can transport it easily. They take it, they hide it somewhere, no proof. Like there's no cameras in the Mustang. There's barely like electricity and so on. It's hard life up there. But the culture itself, whatever is being preserved, or whatever the culture heritage is priceless. So somebody, because it's a hard life, there are many people who go into bad style in life, stealing those culture heritage. To I guess everybody is in a bad position there. But like once they have it and steal him, there's looting it from your own culture heritage. So Mustang, of what precious, like gorgeous heritage it has, is being looted, and it's being sold to a foreign market. And do you know like what kind of like route they take, like trying to sell those things?
So I don't know, but what I would, of course, I don't know, but what I would imagine, like having worked.
Are there stories of like how, if anybody found out how they actually did it, like folk stories or something like those?
So folk stories, I mean, like from what I've heard, like, but I have a decent amount of visibility into this network of how it works, So the channel would be something like when a looting happens in the Himalayas, it would usually be local people who just stole to sell it to someone.
So,
or it could be local people who got mobilized by some international handlers that are based in Kathmandu or Delhi or somewhere in Europe or somewhere in Southeast Asia, So it would be the thieves would take it to Kathmandu. And from the documentary project that I revealed, it shows in the project that the police revealed that cargo houses in Kathmandu were exporting a lot of these. So I would imagine that
primary place of where the things ended up in Kathmandu before it gets shipped abroad.
Exactly. So I would imagine that thieves somehow like take it to Kathmandu. Kathmandu cargo people have it transported to wherever they need it. I mean, like, the problem is also that like they could transport it to Paris, London, New York, wherever, or like anywhere in Southeast Asia. The problem is that like in London, in Paris, in Paris, for example, if you have a piece of antique, or in New York, like, it's not illegal, like in some I've heard that in some countries it says that it has to have been bought in good faith, so what does that mean, good faith, like, so like so those kind of like blurry lines that don't facilitate action on lootings and such. So they probably provide a very good haven for looted things to be circulated and sold freely. So that is already making a very promising environment to thieves. So I would imagine the channel would be like, thieves get it to Kathmandu, and then they give it to cargo houses who transport it to either directly to collectors, collectors who live anywhere, So, and then like once it's transported, it exits the country and gets to the residences of those collectors. Then there's no questions asked.
So
So like I think it's as easy as that, I would imagine. Yeah.
so from your like experience, like where do you think, what is the best I would not say the best way, what is more efficient, like to cut off the purchaser or cut off the people who steal, or try to make those documents so that it's harder for the people to steal those itself? Where do you think is like would be a good way to stop this practice of stealing and being
So um, just to begin with,
Mhm.
I'm not admitting that I have the I understand this problem totally, and then I have the accurate solution towards this. But just to, if I were to propose, but before I propose anything, I would like to begin with mentioning that, you know, it's a very complicated thing. It's not as black and white as thieves come, point a finger at a monastery or a stupa and make away, steal things at night, and then like go away to the city and then they transfer. It's not only as all the artifacts that have ended up at in museums and collectors in foreign countries don't always have to be referred to this single situation, right? So, for instance, in many cases, like museums and collectors have also been kind of saving artifacts,
Yeah.
because, you know, a lot of artifacts have been like damaged, were going to waste, like, you know, like during the Cultural Revolution in Tibet, like a lot of them were burned down and whatnot, and it was like thanks to a lot of people who went and saved them and brought them, that, and then they ended up in museums or in private collections. So there's a lot of saving section in artifacts.
Yeah, I almost feel like museums are trying to do the best they can, but whatever they get those whatever they get the artifact, they are not fully, they don't know like if it has been stolen or given or used for like protection. So at least they are displaying it in public. But what I feel is like the museums are like they have the face, and behind the museum there are like secret collectors who pay a lot of money, who try to put it for themselves and not for the public, and that's where all of those hidden artifacts are end up going there, like without the public's knowledge.
I agree with that. I agree with that. So, and I would have to, I would admit that I would also choose to say that museums are one of the best places those artifacts could actually end up at. You know, so it's a very complicated problem. So, like I was mentioning before, first, a lot of art that has ended up in museums have been saved from destruction. So we must not forget that, and that's why we get to that. It's thanks to a lot of people who worked to get them into a very beautifully preserved situation as of now, that we get to enjoy them, you know. And then there's all the things that go into dodgy, shady places, or get into private collections that the public can never have access to, and those things. So there probably is a lot of other like ways artifacts end up in that I don't understand. But then the problem with all of this is now, as you begin thinking, how ethical is it actually to have somebody else's stuff and just keep it to display it to people around you, you know?
Yeah.
So those kind of things definitely don't permit that, like, you know, I mean, they don't give ethical grounds for some countries or some cultures antiques to be displayed somewhere else, of course. But still, also not forgetting that museums are possibly one of the best places they could be. And that is something like, you know, a lot of artifacts that are stolen from Nepal that have ended up in cities in the West have been returned back to Nepal. And the conditions that have been kept at the National Museum in Nepal and then at the Department of Archaeology is just like, it's
like a storage house.
It's very, very sad. Yeah. And like, I mean, like, just like, you know, I think there's, I mean, like, and, but then again, so, but then does that justify that they would rather be better in like good conditions in foreign museums? So I don't know if I'm the perfect person to answer this, but I would, for me, I'm only speaking from the grounds that from a culture that I grew up with, that had so many artifacts as a part of our culture that we didn't associate, none of which we associated as monetary value, end up in foreign institutions or foreign private collections. Like I'm sure nobody disagrees that it's not ethical, you know, it's not like I mean, like, even if it's ethical, even if it ended up there for the sake of preservation, for the sake of somebody who actually saved it from destruction, eventually, like the moral path for this artifact would be to go back to where it came from, originated. This, I think nobody would have disagreement with that.
Yeah, the problem.
Then,
I almost feel the problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, the problem is the huge monetary value. So that's what ties it to with other intentions, because it's a huge monetary values. There's a lot of these artifacts. They sell for like hundreds of thousands of dollars, some even millions of dollars in auctions, in like even sale online. Like so then of course when it's a very highly prized asset, then it just, I mean, like there are different intentions. So that's where the problem is, I think. Yeah. But sorry, I didn't even answer what you thought the one direct solution was.
Yeah.
So getting back to it, I think one of the solutions could be to spread more insights into people that these artifacts, a lot of, like, of course, people who love, like, you cannot say boo-hoo to people or like complain about people who just simply love the Himalayas. They love the culture, or they love the culture of certain communities in the Himalayas, and they wanted to have a little piece of token with them, but don't know that antiques are illegal, and don't manage to find out how they were procured. And then that procurement would have been some violent means where monks got stabbed, or people got killed, or people got held at gunpoint, and then things got taken away, and then that's how they ended up in some people who just like the place, like the people, like the culture, and it ended up with them, and they simply don't know what's behind this, the blood that
has been spilled
on those artifacts. So it's a very murky thing. It's not as clear as black and white as we show in our documentaries.
Like even just talking with you, I kind of feel like, okay, definitely there's a lot of gray area. It's just like, first of all, you having you have a statue or any artifact like in your village, right? It has been stolen. Like it went to a museum and it has been sent back, say like for good faith. Are you gonna put that the statue back to the same place where it can be stolen again, or put it inside a storage house like for the Nepalese, like architectural preservation, whatever it is? Or is it better off in the museum? Of course, like once it's stolen, like you can see it, like it being in the museum kind of feels like it's being stolen, like you need to get it back. But like just to preserve it once it's back to you, and that's a problem. How should you preserve it, especially in the Mustang Valley where people it's a hard life there. Like you don't just put it you don't make a museum in Mustang and just expect, maybe you can probably make a museum, but it's a hard thing. There's a lot of investment, a lot of security that has to be put. But are you going to put it in museum, or where it's supposed to be, maybe in the stupas where people walk? It's just it's a hard choice. Like, should you, the statue has been stolen, you got it back, now where should you put it? And that's a super hard choice.
That's always the problem. So like when artifacts that have been stolen and that have been like found, like when they have to make the return journey back home, sometimes they're in very, like you say, very sad conditions, and it has happened in Nepal several times, man. Things have gotten stolen, they have been returned to the local authorities,
broken,
being the Department of Archaeology or the National Museums. They have been stolen again, they have been returned, stolen again, repeated times. Like things that have been stolen, and
and in the black market the value goes up because it's been so demanded.
Yeah, definitely, I guess so. And like things of very very high values that have been rescued from communities because they've had like earthquakes or whatnot, and stored at the Department of Archaeology have been stolen, man. They've been stolen from the Department of Archaeology. So imagine the condition in Nepal. So the problem lies in the fact that these artifacts are worth a lot of money, like a lot of money than like people would just easily make in a year or even in a lifetime to a lot of people. And that's why there's a whole market that fuels the market.
Are there organizations? Are there organizations that, like say international organizations or someone that are trying to help, people preserve your, like say in Mustang, has there been any communication with international protection agency for the architectural and historical artifacts? No.
Sadly, there are no dedicated organizations that work just on tracking stolen artifacts and getting them back.
Yeah.
So because I think it would not be easy. It's not an easy field to work on, right? So there are no dedicated organizations, but the Department of Archaeology is kind of like supposed to like regulate and like document what we are doing with the inventories.
Mm-hmm.
Is something that the Department of Archaeology should be doing. So they did do some amount of preliminary like inventories in some monasteries in Mustang,
Mm-hmm.
but that was way back in the days, So they need to do a furthermore like in-depth inventory or database of all these monasteries, keep records and do like this.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know how things work in Nepal,
Yeah.
like they're kind of slow and like they're not being as efficient, because like I have had the privilege to like travel the world and get a little bit sense of how things work, how markets work and all that, and
Mm-hmm.
so like, but not everybody at the Department of Archaeology has, I guess. So it's not easy for them to like operate as an organization that tracks stolen artifacts and get it back. A lot of people, the Department of Archaeology knowingly does not even ask for repatriation,
Mm-hmm.
even though they come to be notified about artifacts being stolen. So there are no organizations that work.
It's a hard
like,
place to be. Like you can preserve it. Whatever you are doing, it's a great job. Just making a record of it so that in case it ends up in a museum or so on in a good place, you can retrieve it back. But no way it can be traced back to the black market around the world. No way you can figure out like who gets it, what it is. Just to figuring out what it is a hard place. And like when you try to get it back, that's like a international level court case.
Exactly. It's way out of reach, man. It's things that governments should take as their responsibilities. When something gets stolen from Nepal,
Mm-hmm.
and if some locals like give evidences to the Department of Archaeology and the Nepal police to evidences on things that have been stolen, they should contact Interpol. They should contact the concerned law enforcement agencies of those countries where they have been spotted those artifacts. They should think. So it's definitely something that the government should be very like what do you say, ahead with. But the problem in Nepal, you see, like we're talking about like we have basic problems with education and health and like basic infrastructure, man. And artifacts come like way behind in our list of priorities.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's so less done about it. That and the added condition of the market for these things, So I think as part of the solution could come with people who are potential customers of buying such antiques, knowing that how it is destroying a culture, how it is hurting people, how it is facilitating violence in a lot of places, And then it's of course there is violence on how things are procured, but there is also difficulties on like you see in Mustang. If we have a very precious statue that the whole village regards very, very symbolically, and it's not like nobody knows how much it costs, But for us, our brains have registered that this is something we hold in common,
Yeah.
And the more things people have in common, the more social cohesion, social unity there is, right? So when that gets stolen, how it impacts psychologically is when things get stolen, people don't know it consciously, but very often people's subconsciouses have registered that something in common has disappeared, is not there anymore.
Yeah,
and that's how
your culture has been stolen. Like just imagine, say one festival is completely wiped out. Like we'll think like, oh, we used to have so much fun in that festival. Same with the architecture, archaeological artifacts. Is like those holds, those are itself are just stones and metals, but those hold values of a lot of people in it. And it's
I was trying to say, exactly. Because when something that we as a village or a community have in common, and when that is not there anymore, our subconsciouses, our brains register that something in common is not there anymore, and that creates chance that our social unity breaks easily, So it destroys social cohesion, Psychologically, it acts that it makes it is when something that people hold in common is not there anymore. There is more chances they are more easily separated, feel in common. So it's like that's how it is destructive for a society or community,
Yeah, the culture itself is such a valuable thing. If it has a lot of memories of people in the past, That's what your heritage is, and it's the whatever is there in Mustang is a world heritage. It's the value is priceless, and once it gets taken up, it's not only missing out on the people of Mustang. It's for the whole world. It's a big loss. So I just figured out, like, I'm just comparing this to another kind of solution. I don't know if this would be a solution or not. So like a lot of places say to protect the rhinos, like just putting like we're gonna punish the people who steal the rhinos is not enough, right? You have to have the community come in, and about the idea where the community profits from having the rhino, like a lot of places where the community tourism increases to see the rhino, so the community profits, right? So there is a different approach to it. Like say in Africa, they allow tourists to shoot the tiger or shoot the lions to protect the lions itself, because they get the funding. So they allow the tourists to shoot the elephant or lions which are being aggressive and needs to be taken down because it was killing the villagers. So hold on, something's wrong with the internet.
Sorry, can you see me? So I was just okay.
Back? Yeah. Okay. The internet was
a text just appeared.
Yeah.
So I was just like,
like I've seen of those like it's a little different way of seeing things. Is like a lot of I've heard about a lot of villages in Africa and so on. They allow tourists to come and shoot the elephant or the tiger, the ones they don't want, because the tigers and elephants are just like attacking the villagers or so on. But they do it in such a way that the tourist comes and pays for those kind of sports. I'm not supportive of those, but this is something interesting. But that same money they receive from the tourists killing those tigers and so on is used to conserve that other tiger species. So they're using the same money. So that's like a death of one tiger or elephant is helping protect the conservation effort. So same way, like when I take it in your like monasteries, like you just have to figure out, like have like educate or build a business where like preserving those artifacts, which is similar to like tourism is there, but there might be a little better way. Saving those artifacts is where you like ask people to come visit those places. I'm not saying that, I'm just like throwing up there my ideas. Is like maybe there's a business model to help the society or to help the villages earn money because of the culture, to save the culture itself. I don't know how it can be done. Right?
I think like, I mean, like for me, I mean, like I find that idea, sorry, like that idea of like just like going hunting animals is just way beyond what I can understand. But then still, I think for the artifact thing, like you said, but going towards along those lines, I think like that's why, for instance, in what we're doing in Ladakh is we're building a museum, and then we're building a traditional museum with traditional material, traditional building technologies, and we're the monastery that we're currently working on in Ladakh, it has like such a huge collection. So, but we have selected around, we and the monks, like primarily, have selected around 300 plus artifacts that we will display in this 3-floor museum.
And that's amazing.
So, yeah, and we've been building it ourselves, and this is the 11th year we're working on it. So, so like, but museum not in an idea to seal a part of an entire functioning monastery or something like this. It will be a museum where they can still hold pujas, they can still hold rituals, they can
that's like, take amazing. You have like security people, like, so people are going to be around there. So there's more security. You don't have to have like a security guard because everybody will be there. You just probably need a better like way to safeguard it. But it's almost similar to what I said. It's just like, instead of hiding the stupas, like so that nobody would see it, just like make it up visible so that everybody would find the importance of it. So more people from the same community, instead of stealing it, finds a value, finds a job to protect it.
Exactly. And then on top of that, we have factual information. Like we've been working with like French departments, government departments that have researched on what exact kind of material what exact kind of color pigments were used, like, and what kind of plant, what kind of metal, what kind of like rock it was. So, and then with geologists studying which area those materials might have come from. So we have a very scientific in-depth study on the project that we're running in Ladakh on what kind of art, how old, what kind of materials used, where these materials might have come from, and then the style of the art and the materials that were used, suggesting on where the artists travel from. A lot of very in-depth, accurate information. So
that's amazing.
Combined with all that, we think it, and the fact that it's not a closed, sealed museum, it's a living monastery, part of the monastery where the monks hold pujas, and where they can take off any artifact or tangas that they want and put it for a puja in another room if needed, and put it back, and things like this, with accurate scientific information. Plus, we will have those like cameras and sensors on like when things move and things like that. So
stuff.
all of that, I think, security stuff. I think it makes a good formula to kind of display your art and like have some income to at least sustain the place, or the monastery. So we're going towards that as like one part of a broader solution, because I believe that there's a broader solution to preserving art. There's
that's in Ladakh, right?
Yeah, we're doing that in Ladakh right now. Yeah.
And compared to Ladakh, like how different is it? Like any plans on those same ideas to be implemented on Mustang area?
Yeah, it's happening in Mustang. A lot of people, a lot of monasteries want to build museums, because they want a section where they can actually display all their like antiques, religious heritage. So we're trying to do that in Mustang. Like a lot of monasteries in Mustang have asked us to come and work on the artifacts, preserve them, like restore them, and build museums. So it is like, I mean, like, not that we're definitely going to do anything in Mustang yet, but like we're going towards that direction. So we have done a lot of database. So I think eventually is not something I would like directly like to do, because there's a lot of other things we have in mind that have to do with humanitarian issues, because we have plans to run some more other humanitarian projects that involves people's health or survival, So, but that is definitely something we want to do, consider in the future, like either doing ourselves or partnering with a few other like organizations or people, and trying to do something along those lines.
Yeah. For the people like who don't know like how Mustang is, I know you. We have a lot of friends from Mustang, and I know a little bit about the culture and the life of Mustang. But I remember like when I searched a little bit about you, like we're diverting our conversation a little towards different. So you went to Mustang. So there's actually some, as you said, like there's a documentary based on your work trying to build a wind turbine in Mustang. So there's actually a film you can watch. There's a link. I'll try to put the link in the description as well if they want to watch it. So there's actually a movie based on your effort to put a wind turbine in Mustang. Like, okay, first, before even we go into it.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, it was, I think 2015, 14, around that time, right?
14,
yeah. So can you just explain me, like, not before we even go to the turbine, can you tell me like the life of people in Mustang? What is it like? How is the the regular life? How hard is it? Like, what had changed from your experience?
So Mustang is one of those like remote corners in the Himalayas that is changing very fast, of course, like all the other places in the Himalayas, right? Because people are getting roads and electricity now. But then it's a small little corner, like the upper half of Mustang. I mean, like now people say upper Mustang and lower Mustang, but I mean, like I grew up in the northern part, the upper half of Mustang, like somewhat 5,600 square kilometers. Very arid, dry desert landscape, somewhat you would see in like, I don't know, Utah, Arizona. I guess I've never been to those places, but from the pictures and the videos I see. So something like that, very windy, very high settlements, the lowest settlements being around 3,000 meters and the highest settlements being around 4,000 meters above sea level. And then like very huge area, but very like less populated, of course, because life is a little harsh, right? And north of the Himalayas, and because it's north of the Himalayas, the Himalayas block all the rain clouds coming down from down south, so we have very less rain. So it's
Okay.
called a rain shadow.
So that's
right?
a problem.
So
That's a natural problem.
yeah, that's kind of a problem. But then the way people have found a way to harvest glacial melts water is quite an interesting
But
technique.
how do you
Also,
do that?
I mean, no, I mean, like, by interesting, I mean, like, it's very common in the Himalayas. So like people, and there's no forest, because there's no rain, there's no forest and things like this. So in the upper half of Mustang that I speak of, that I expertise more on, is around 31 villages. Used to be population decreasing very fast because a lot of the youths are emigrating elsewhere.
Yeah.
So around 4,900 people as of now. We speak 31 villages north of the Himalayas, very dry.
So there's
people
just
have a very
4,000, about 5,000 people?
Yeah, man. There's just around 5,000 people in the northern half of Mustang.
That's such a little.
If you take the southern parts of Mustang, like Muktinath, Kagbeni, Jomsum, Leyte, like all those, then it's huge because there's so much more people living down south, But in the northern half, it's only around 5,000 people for 5,600 square kilometer. So that's around a little less than 1 person per square kilometer. So like people live a life very attached to animals, and water, of course, and so. People keep animals, cows for milk, like goats and sheep for meat, yaks for meat and milk, and then horses to travel. And people use the dung of all these animals. There's such a science behind how you use like a horse dung to start a fire, how you use like cow dung to make the fire bigger, and yak dung to make it
raw life.
Exactly, yak dung to make it even bigger. How you use sheep and goat dung to make a fire last longer, and all the thing, and you use all that dung because there's no forest. You use all that dung to like cook and make food, and then to heat the house. And the ash of that goes into your dry toilet, and all of that makes a very good compost that goes into the fields. And then when the snow melts, bringing in glacial water to your fields, that's where you grow everything you need.
This is like full living on green.
Yeah, wheat, buckwheat, like mustard, like barley, and potatoes, peas, and then like carrots, radish. So I grew. I mean, like I'm detailing that because that's how I grew up. Just like growing up in the mountains, like very free, like eating what was produced on our own and things like this. And now it's changing very fast because a lot of people are traveling, and then. The roads are coming in, so it's already connected to the rest of Nepal by track roads, which are rather sketchy. Right? So and in the winter when the river is low, even huge trucks go on the riverbed. So accessibility is becoming ever more easier. So, but then as a result of there's less and less horses because people now prefer cars and motorbikes. And then the place is changing very fast in terms of the road, bringing in a lot of like foreign goods, because now people like don't want to like use ancient metal lighters. They would go lighter or matchstick,
So life is changing super fast up there.
Exactly. There's like hotel billboards and like restaurants popping up. People are having like electricity, so they cook on rice cookers. I've heard some people even have fridges and things like that. I'm just
and that's
so
cool.
starting to have TVs and things like this. So so that's kind of like how Mustang is, and it's very like one religion, kind of like most people are Buddhist. There's monasteries almost with every village, and a lot of cultural monuments. And because the landscape changes a lot, there's like wind carved crazy cliffs, and like it used to be when like back in the few million, 8, 9, 10, I'm not very accurate on that, some 8, 9, 10 million years ago, when all of that was under the sea, Tethys Sea, you still find a lot of the fossils from back then, the ammonite fossils that people call shalligrams, So there's a lot, and the horse culture and everything. And so people come to see all this crazy wind carved, eroded landscape, like very colorful. You have like red
a lot of tourism
cliffs,
as well, right?
Quite a lot of tourism in the upper half. We have around 4,000 tourists a year these years, except this year, of course, the pandemic. So this year, it was like tourism has been like halted all around the world. So we, on average, that's around 4,000 tourists, and that brings in around 13 crore rupees. So 13 crore Nepalese rupees. How much is that in?
That's a
US
lot
dollars?
for at least those part of the economy. That's a vital economy. So that's a major part of source of income for the locals there.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like, no. And then all of that money actually goes to the government, dude. Like,
Oh,
that's just like tax money. That's
okay.
just revenues to
But
like
like
permits.
the tourists come there and spend it on more local resources,
Exactly. There's
hotels and
like,
everything.
exactly. Tourism is quite a thing that sustains, but mostly only the people that are on the tourism line.
Mhm.
There's a lot of far-flung villages that see no tourists at all, or so there is that kind of thing, of course, like in most places.
Yeah.
But tourism definitely does a lot of good things. Yeah, of course, like somehow it
Yeah.
also
And when I saw like you trying to build a turbine during that like 2014-15, so like it wasn't like that much of electricity or more civilization come into that place, or how was the time right then?
So 2000 it was 2013-14. So that was when I first like when the road was coming in. So people were building the road. They were
Huh?
like there's like carving cliffs and things like this. And the road was like not completely connected. You just had to switch in like 7 or 8 places,
Mhm.
but you'd get there eventually. There's like jeeps that somehow got somewhere like in the winter on the back of trucks or somewhere like. So it was a time when the road was coming in. That means it was a time when like a major change was coming in. So for me, the building the wind turbine came after having worked for 4 years with partnering with ACAP. ACAP is a conservation agency that works in the whole of Annapurna. So that's a lot of Mustang, Manam, and then there's other places like, some of Magdi, and then there's like a lot of places somewhere north of Pokhara also. So they had a joint project with the UNDP a long time ago. That was on community development, and then all of the same criteria, like alternative energy, like tourism development, and then. So I was working with them. I worked for 1 year on paid as a paid employee, and then the organization ran out of funds. So I volunteered for the next 3 years, trying to get government revenues of the tourism share to come to Mustang, so that we could use it in Mustang.
Yeah.
And so that didn't come directly to Upper Mustang; it came to the district. So eventually, that's how it
The
ended up.
funds.
So it gets distributed in the whole district budget, but not all of it. Only 30% of it comes. So so we ensured that 30% came, even though it's like way lesser than what should have actually happened. So I always wanted to do something about electricity because the people in Mustang had no access to electricity then. Only 3 villages had hydropowered electricity. The rest all
Out of
had
50, you said 50, right?
out of 31.
Out
Yeah.
of 31, only 3 had electricity, some kind of
Only
electricity.
3 had hydropower electricity,
Okay.
water-based electricity, that powered a turbine. And then the rest all depended on solar lamps kit. So they just had this little 80 watt or 100 watt, or some had like 150, some even had 200.
For a few houses.
Yeah, solar lamp panels on the roof, and then that would light like the least it would light would be 2 bulbs or 3 bulbs, 4 bulbs, 5 bulbs,
For a
like
few
this.
hours.
So that's all the electricity they had.
Yeah.
So in even my parents, even in our house, we just had like an 80 watt solar panel that was lighting 4 bulbs. And when I was growing up, there was no electricity at all. So we were just burning like kerosene, kerosene little lamps, and even mustard oil lamps, the mustard that came from our fields. So when I was doing that, I thought, of course, we all grew up like knowing like we could do something with the wind. I always wanted to do something. So I wanted to do something with this wind turbine, So there was this friend who worked for the ACAP, and he was just like never had a degree or anything, but he was like the man to go with electricity. He would fix like little radios.
Self-made knowledge.
And he had done some. He had done. He completed his 10th grade and then like his 12th grade, and then he tried to do a course to become a civil engineer or something like this. But at that time he hadn't made it. But now he works with the Nepal Electricity Authority.
Okay.
But back then, when but he was more like, he didn't have much of a degree. He had more like practical skills. He was very used to dealing with electricity. This man would single-handedly repair an entire hydropower plant.
What was his name again?
His name was Jivan Oli.
Oh, okay.
So Jivan Oli, he was working on the alternative energy sector with ACAP. And he and I used to always team up, and we were saying, like, dude, we should do something about the wind, try to do. So we would cut our little pipes and make little fans, like to see how well it rotates, and run around roofs in Lomantang, in this village, and try to see. And then somebody just gifted me a wind meter, something that you could check wind speeds,
Okay.
And man, it was our new gadget. So I was just like always going to different places, testing wind speed, like it was like my God's gadget. And of course, like I would
like this is pretty much this.
exactly. Exactly. Sometimes just for fun, we would just blow in like who can get like the highest counts, So those kind of things. But so we wanted to do something about it. And the next year, I went on an India tour. I did an India north to south tour, from Kashmir to like down Kanyakumari. So I toured all over a long backpacking trip. And then when I was in South India, in the where was in Tamil Nadu, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, and in Tamil Nadu, there's a place called Auroville, and Auroville was an institution founded by. I don't have too much information about it, but in Auroville, we met this gentleman who knew so much about wind turbines. And this guy, he would go and install like huge, because there was so less wind in Tamil Nadu, he would install like huge, tall wind turbines, like higher than the trees, because they had to go higher than the trees to get some amount of wind.
Oh, that's amazing.
And but they would, very small generators, like 500 watt, like 700 watt generators he would make. And this guy, he was just like making everything with hand, man. Yeah, and he was like, of course, you would have to buy the magnets, the wires, and things like this. So his name was Korke. So Korke, and so Korke, I met Korke, and I said like, wow, this is incredible. Can you show us? Like, and he showed me around his workshop, and I was so interested. So I got to see how he was doing things a little bit. We just like spent 2 days there,
Okay.
But because we were like in a rush trip, so I was just backpacking trip all around India, right? So I came back and I said, like, we have to do something about this. We have to get in touch with this guy. So I came home and I fundraised from among my friends, from my friends. I wrote to people friends I had in the US, like some friends in Germany here and there. People just did all kinds of things. Some people sold cakes to get some money, and those things
how much did it cost for that turbine?
So it's a long story. So I think the total funds we raised were around, I don't know, somewhere around $3,000.
Okay.
But the initial funds that I raised was not for the turbine. It was I wanted to send Jivan and one other local friend that I had to Tamil Nadu, to Korke,
Okay, to train them.
I said, I was like, if you guys go to this guy's place and learn how to train, like, you're going to be so good at this.
Yeah.
And they wanted to go, and somehow with the funds I raised, I managed to book flight tickets for them to go Kathmandu to Delhi to like Chennai, and then from Chennai drive to that place. They lived 1.5 months in this like crazy heat of South India, training on how to make a wind turbine,
That's an amazing story.
So they learned how to make wind turbines from scratch. They came back and they taught me like all the extra details that I was missing. And then we teamed up, we raised more funds, and then we built our first turbine.
Okay. And is that the movie story that's based on it?
Yeah. So the story, on the movie, you actually only see us building a turbine in Mustang, right?
Okay.
But the backstory is this, the backstory is, so from India where they trained, and even in their 1.5 month of training, they built this generator. Like the generator is the most essential part, where you have these copper coils and winding on how many watts you want. So you put all these copper coils, and then you put them in a mold, and then you pour like liquid resin over it, and then it solidifies, and it becomes a generator. So a turbine actually is just like this. You see, when you have magnets, when you pull apart magnets like that are pulling each other, when you make a gap, there's a huge, strong magnetic field, right?
Yeah.
So the nearer you are, the stronger it is. Of course, very obvious, right? The farther you are, the weaker it is. The nearer you are, the stronger it is. So the nearer you can put, the stronger magnetic field you can create. So if you make this magnetic field in motion, and you put a conductor in between, any conductor, copper, bronze, silver, gold, anything, it's going to make electricity. That was the idea of wind turbine, of course, like just like of dynamos, of course.
Yeah.
So we just... So they came back, Shivan and this other friend who went Funjok, we teamed up, and then they brought the generator that they built during their training back to Mustang. And then we sourced the rest of the materials there. And then and then we made the rest of the wind turbine, like we got the wires. And so our wind turbine was not meant to last and empower a village forever. It was just a trial that we wanted to do, because we had never tested it in Mustang. So we brought it to Mustang and we fabricated all the rest parts, like sketchy weldings that we were just learning to do. And so it's just out
So
of like very
basically,
raw.
learned the entire mechanical engineering as well as electrical engineering to build the wind turbine by yourself.
Yeah, so Jivan did most of the electrical thing, and so I did most of the facilitating logistic, and then a little bit of like just reading, because Jorge gave us this amazing book, because the wind turbine we built is a wind turbine to build from scratch by a Scottish guy. You know, there's a Scottish guy called Hugh Pigot, and he builds like this very interesting improvised wind turbines. So Jorge gave me his book, a copy of his book. And so for us, everything that we didn't know, we just go to that book, you know,
That's
like
amazing
everything.
story.
Yeah, and we learned to make a turbine. So we learned to build and install a turbine. So the story you see on the movie is actually our journey on the Mustang half, you know, on how we got into Mustang and how we find all the bits and pieces that we're missing, do like whatever kind of like welding, like get source materials, and then buy big batteries and then put it. So we built a turbine. It was an 800-watt turbine.
800
So
watt.
it would, 800 watt is a generator capacity, but it depends on the wind. Like in Mustang, we have like 6 to 7 meter per second average wind, you know. With 6 to 7 meter per second, you could get like easily like 5 kilowatts per hour, you know, electricity.
That's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that 800-watt turbine can put out 5 kilowatts of electricity per hour. So we had that reading, of course, but then the groundwork is always different, because I raised funds for this. So I thought, of course, initially I thought like, oh, I'm going to raise funds among my friends and go build a turbine and bring electricity to these houses. But I was not very, kind of young then, like this. Yeah. I mean, like, sorry.
Now, having an ambition is great. Like, even though it's a little harder.
Yeah, but then you get hit with all the practical aspects of it, right? So I went back. We had some amount of like limited funds, and then we put up a turbine, and then we're like, oh, dude, like we don't even have money to buy wires. So I just used my own personal money. Jivan contributed some. We found money here and there, and we got wires. A lot of people gave us material, you know. Mm-hmm. So we didn't even take into account that the main cost is not even the turbine. It's like
it's maintaining it probably.
Yeah, it's distribution wires and transmission pole, you know.
Oh,
you're like, dude,
all the houses. Like, how far is the wind turbine from the houses?
So that's a good question. Of course, the longer the transmission lines, the more power loss. So the problem with the village was, we wanted to put it up, was also we had some difficulties there with where do we put the turbine, because one block of the village was Mati, and on the upper end there was and on the lower end there was this lower block, but very scattered, you know.
Okay.
So we're like, we put it in between the village, or in the middle of the village, or in the middle of this scattered village. So that was a huge question. So we put it in the middle of the scattered village, you know, because of because like it was a trial, you know. So we put it up, and then and then there was a problem of, because we didn't have enough wires, bulbs, like and it is not a permanent thing. It was
temporary trial.
It was a trial thing that we wanted to do. We didn't know who to connect, so we did a good study, and we connected 5 houses that did not have any electricity at all, that had solar that was not working, you know.
Okay.
So we connected them, and then we said we trained our local friends there on how to maintain it, you know. Like every now and then we told them, like, you just put it off and you put some grease here and stuff, you know. You check if these nuts or screws are tight. You have to check all these. And it's a very interesting system, this. And then like the tail was made of plywood that we just cut apart in Lomantang and everything, you know. It was just so we put it up, and then it lit 5 houses for 13 months.
Oh, that's
more than a year. And then we have a lot of very nice reading. So after that, it fell down because our local guy who was supposed to take care of it, he went away in the winter, you know. He went away in the winter, and the tail, because the sun was so strong on the tail, you know.
Oh, like, it started to bend away. The sun
at night it was super cold temperatures at night. And then when the sun comes up, like immediately the temperature difference, the tail couldn't take, because we hadn't even painted our like blades and our tail, because we didn't like have materials, you know. So the tail bent a little, and then when it bends, you start having this, you know.
Yeah. So the whole physics kind of runs away.
yeah, so it blew the screw away, and our guy who was supposed to maintain it, he had gone away for some other trade, like for like more than a month.
Okay.
and, then, and then the tail screw fell off, so that put the whole turbine out of balance, and then it fell down. So that's what happened. But that was a trial phase that we wanted to do, and we were very happy with what we achieved. So I definitely want to do something more in the future, but now it's a different scene because now the national grid line is going everywhere.
So the national. So right now, the electricity is more common than before. Like it's 2020, so 5 years. It's been like 5 years since you started the turbine project. So the national grid line is already in the upper and lower part of it, as you said, to 2 villages.
Yeah. So national grid line is getting to that village. It is not there yet, but it's on the way. It's just very, very near. It has reached my village, and like the main villages of Lomantang. I mean, like the main village of Lomantang doesn't need it because they have huge solar plants.
Okay.
So, but the problem with the grid is, so the government of Nepal wants to sell all the electricity because there have been huge investments. There was 10 years load sharing, and then of course a lot of people realize, oh, there's going to be huge scopes in electricity if we invest. So lots of private institutions
they've invested, a lot of organizations came and invested on that.
Invested a lot of money, and then a lot of electricity hydropowers were built. But now it's the problem of transmission, just like we faced, but now at a big scale. These hydropowers, there's like, how do you transmit? Because transmission is huge cost if you have to take this huge electricity out of power plants that are more than a megawatt, or like huge, or any power plant for that matter. And if you want to take transmission lines to huge villages and cities, it costs a lot. So a lot of these power plants that have been built are facing problems of not being able to connect to the national grid line, or the National Electricity Authority not being able to facilitate the transmission of all these power plants. So it's a big problem in Nepal now. But as for now, the ones that have already been distributed, the government wants to connect them as many places as possible, because of course it's more revenues for the government. So they're connecting in Mustang also everywhere. The problem is places like Mustang, like where I told you, 5,000 in the upper half, 5,600 square kilometers, like 31 villages only, like less than 5,000 people. Like you just see more wires and less electricity, because it's going to cover the whole road. Those electricity lines, transmission lines.
They need more spots where the electricity can be more efficient. So they need more, I guess, transponder or whatever that. I don't know. I have no idea about the technical term, but so wherever the electricity is being generated, it needs to travel certain place and still have the same voltage or the current. So those are
that's difficult. No, that's difficult. That's difficult because when you take power lines for long distances, it's definitely going to lose power. There's always power loss in transmission. So the solution would be, the ideal solution would be little villages in Mustang having their own isolated systems, having their own solar and wind power plants, so that they don't have to connect all the villages with electricity wires, which is not only visually disturbing but also dangerous.
Especially for, like as you said, like a 1 person per kilometer. The population is such low, and the investment to join all those houses are going to be super hard.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to take, and now they are taking it all over the place. Huge metal poles, and like 3-phase lines.
And it's windy place, as you said, windy place.
Windy and crazy temperatures, right?
Yeah.
So the best solution would be to make isolated self units, like small villages of 30 houses. Like the biggest village in Mustang has like 190 houses, So little villages having their own isolated solar, and like Lomantang has their own water powered and solar powered electricity. That's more than enough for now. People are not using like water heating and like ovens and fridges for now, but it will, of course, because the demand is always on the rise. So the ultimate solution would be self-isolated units. So that's why, for me, I don't know. Let's see how the situation will be by the time I end up settling in Mustang permanently and wanting to build turbines. But it is something on my list that I want to do.
So are you planning to actually go and build more turbines?
So as of now, I have no immediate plans to do that. But it is on my list of things that I would want to do. So maybe it will take a few years, because once I start living in Nepal, like permanently. Because
now you are now in France, right?
Yeah, I'm in France. France is just like very temporarily. I just come here sometimes for the winters, and this time in summer we're just kind of escaping a pandemic and like a difficult, more like not difficult, but a situation in Ladakh. Because we were in Ladakh, and then like there were like the pandemic was.
It was starting there too, right? Like the infection, right?
Yeah. The infections had started way back in Ladakh. Like the problem was we were not scared of the infection or worried of the getting infected. We were more worried about how the local administration is going to handle like movement and like ration and all that. Because in India with 130 crore people, like even if one, like it's very likely that 1 crore people get it. Like that's just 1%, less than a percent,
Yeah.
less than 1% population. So we're thinking that the case is going to rise drastically, which it is right now. So the dealing with that, the facilitating logistics and all that, it's going to be tricky because in August our plan was to come leave Ladakh. So we were thinking if we don't leave now in August, it might be more under a lockdown or more restrictions, travel restrictions.
That's happening throughout the hugely populated countries, like especially when it started in China and the way they had to go through like to make it strict. Now it's more like actually I think the good news is like the death rate has gone down significantly. So at least the people who get it have high rate of probability of surviving the disease. So that's a good news.
Exactly, of course, high.
But like the infection rate is like it can't be stopped. Like even though if you try to stop it, for how long are you going to live in isolation? So it's a hard choice. Like you either live like as taking social distancing and try to live as normally as you can, or you just stay inside your house for God knows how many years. Like this is going to happen for a couple of years at least before, I guess, what do you call those? I don't know the term. I forgot the term, but like people who get infected and get like who becomes okay. Yes.
Okay.
And it does not transfer from them. I guess the.
Okay.
I forgot the word.
I don't know the term either, but I think I think first, personally, I think the virus is not as serious as people deem it to be, and it's not deadly. I think, I mean, like I'm not a medical professional, but then from what I hear and understand, it seems to be dangerous only to people who have pre-existing medical conditions, right?
And that's sad. Like for them, it's sad. It's hard. And for the rest of the people, it's just, what are we gonna do? Like, are we supposed to like close our business forever and like you're ruining your life, or do I do I try to like self distance and try to run my life regularly and try to do what you can? So there's anytime the administration or the government comes in, they try to go like, oh, shut down everything, and they forget about all the consequences of like people losing their only source of income. They have to literally starve to death, and that's happening more than what disease actually can like the number of people dying from disease is less than the number of people who will die from starvation.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem in Nepal and India also. Like you see, like we think like what like lockdown. Of course, the lockdowns are the most efficient ways to spread stop the virus from spreading, right? But man, in like countries like Nepal and India, where our infrastructure is nowhere compared to what Europe and the US has, or all these other countries that are enforcing lockdowns, we have nowhere near for that amount of infrastructure or like facilities. And yet we do a lockdown, and what happens? Like so many people get stranded in different parts of the country. Of course, because people are all moving everywhere for jobs.
It's not just stranded; they literally have no food. They have no way to transport and to get to their home, to get to their village. They're literally stranded at like a roads. I've seen stories of people walking 200 kilometers to get to their home because they're stranded now.
And people stranded at borders with nowhere to go, no food, no ration, like nothing, and like crazy conditions, man. They're not even talking about the people stuck around the borders in Nepal. Like forget like government is reaching out to people of like middle class and richer people who are studying in foreign countries, repatriating them by flights in the early days. And dude, the most affected is always the
poor people,
less privileged people who are just stuck around. Like for instance, on the border with Nepal from India, like hundreds of thousands of people wanting to come in. no facilities to quarantine, but just because everybody's scared, they don't want to let them in. And so there's just people dying there. There's no reports of anything there. Like, look at how many people are stuck through the borders on the people, and all these international aid organizations wanting to help. Like, it's so sad, man. Like, I think we have more people dying of starvation, of like you know, like I don't know, so many other infectious diseases than coronavirus, that a lockdown is not very logical to us. But and I think the like what do you say, the virus has been the what do you say,
Spreading?
the deadliness of the virus
Okay,
has
yeah.
been exaggerated, I think, you know, like
Yeah,
if you
it
see
has been
like,
exaggerated. I've been hearing stories like, at least in the United States, what's been happening is like, say you have a diabetes and you have coronavirus too, right? But you are like type A diabetes and you're about to die from diabetes, and you die from actually diabetes. But if you have a coronavirus, they list you as a coronavirus death, which is happening a lot more than what people think. It's like, even if you have like any disease which is more deadly, and if you happen to have a symptom of coronavirus, they put you at a coronavirus death. So the number of death from coronavirus increases, is inflated, but not due to coronavirus, but more like a disease from other pre-existing condition, or whatever the deadly disease, which is still bad. But you can't just say it's coronavirus just because you have it. It might have for regular people, a lot of people die from coronavirus, but that number is so small compared to what it has been extended. Because from anybody can check, fact check me, I might be wrong, but a lot of the hospitals get funds if they have coronavirus, saying like, oh, like our patients have coronavirus, so we need funds. So they try to make you like, there's a incentive to lie, or not exact lying, but incentive to show that people are dying from like the virus, to get fund for the hospital. So yes, they are getting a coronavirus, but you have to be more truthful, more factual, and like informing the public, saying what actually is the actual number. And once we figure out like the numbers has been inflated, so nobody cares about the actual data, it's like, that's not true. Same with people getting infected. There are a lot more people, so a lot of people can't even get checked up if you have to get virus or not, right? Like, it's hard to get checked up. And if I checked in now, say for example, I have some symptom, I go check in now, I might not have it, and then say maybe I might have it next week. So should I go check up again? So you don't know. So the numbers of infection of people, I think, is really a lot. This is super extensively infectious disease, but luckily it's not as deadly as we thought it was. So that's a good news. But people are getting scared because of, you hear the number of how many people getting infected, and the whole city get blocked off. And in Nepal, say right now you can't go outside. If you get outside, the police will come and catch you and put you in quarantine zone. But the police themselves have no precaution. Like, they literally are like, not, they may transfer you. The police literally will catch you, and they may actually transfer you the virus, because that's not done properly. So I think the government itself, trying to do a good thing, does it so badly that it becomes a problem in itself.
I think in many places, I mean, like, I don't exactly know how the condition is in the US, but I mean, like, for example, of course, I'm sure it's a good idea that everybody should wear masks in public, and, you know, it's better to, like, and lockdowns are definitely, undeniably, a good solution to stop the virus from spreading. But like, for countries like Nepal and India, I think, like, enforcing a lockdown all of a sudden, just like in the West, was so much more lethal on the people, man. So many people suffered and died from it, and it's still continuing. The toll is still rising.
Almost
so
at the
for a lockdown was too disastrous.
Almost at the beginning, when nobody knew about the virus, it was like, okay, let's at least try to see what's the virus is about, and they took some time. But now it's been like 6 months and more. Still, like, there's so much information saying like what is good and what is bad and what is working. They can actually figure out like the way the lockdown is working right now is not might not be effective. You should let I guess like taking precaution and the death and the destruction from having the lockdown is way more serious than the virus itself. So you kind of have to figure out what is good, right? And the
Yeah,
government don't do
exactly.
that.
Exactly. That's the sad part. I mean, like in Nepal, that's the sad part, man. And like they're doing this like rapid tests, and they're not even doing like this polymerase chain reaction test, which is more accurate in finding like coronavirus cases, right? And they're like in Nepal, so many deaths that they find out later that they had coronavirus, right? COVID. So that is so sad, man. And then like they spend 1,000 crore, man. 1,000 crore. The government just like tabled a bill of like put up a bill of 1,000 crore.
That's
They
more.
spend
That's,
one.
I don't know in American dollar, but about around billions.
Yeah, exactly. And then they spent that much amount of money, and now they say and a lot of them probably went to repatriation flights. And then and they got so much aid from the EU, from foreign
And
governments.
that's like
And then they say that they are not able to put up chain like PCR tests, and people are dying at border entry points. And like I mean, like the situation is like we have a taste of how insensitive our government is towards like the grassroots people, the people who suffer the most, the least privileged people. And then I think like it can be quite a disaster. And I think like sadly, like not to say and like not to become somebody who always like complains about the government, but it is certain that we are headed towards a more disastrous situation. Like I am waiting to go back to Nepal, and then now like, they don't have repatriation flights. For me, I had made up my mind that I would go back, like whatever the situation is in Nepal. Like there is a repatriation flight, I will go back. But now I'm stuck from India. I was in India. They had no repatriation flights from India. They said you have to go by land. And then by land, they said you have to wait 14 days at the Indian border and then go to the Nepalese border, wait 14 days there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to spend a month at the borders. Like that's more chances that I get infected, and still like, it's not that I regard the infection as the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the logistics and the like endurance you would have to go through to getting home.
Yeah, they just plan out something and they just think like this, like so that they seem like from the public side they are working, but whatever they are working, whatever they planned out is not like based on actual fact, and they haven't improved on it. It's just getting worse. Whatever they plan initially might look like it will work, and then it does not, and they don't change it. They're just making it worse and worse. And people, like, say for example, not even the repatriate those like for you to come back to Nepal with the flight, but basically like a lot of hundreds of thousands of people were stuck in abroad and trying to come back in, and people who are inside the country too, like they have no way of for people who are quarantined, and for people who like I say might be infected, they have those population. They try to put it in the camp, which looks horrible, which has horrible services, and there's a high chance of like you heard about like different cases that's happening, like criminal cases inside the camps themselves. So there's like no solution. Everything is worse. Like coming to Nepal, worse. Like getting infected, or like trying to start like if you have a business, what are you going to do? Like you have to pay your rent and all those economical things. So there's no solution. The government has just made it harder for regular people, and the people who are well off, say people who have jobs, they can work from home. It's hard for them to understand. They don't even care. It's hard for the people to understand what's happening in the border side, and that's the part is the people who are suffering the most don't have the voice, and they always get left out in Nepal, and that happens all over the world, and that's when it's always downhill for anything that happens.
Exactly. I mean, like sadly in Nepal, a lot of things are going downhill with politics and things, but I think there's a huge part of the solution lies in a lot of people like staying in Nepal and working towards like bettering things, I mean, like because I mean, like there's enough of complaints that we do. So for me, I think like because these facilities of where like educated and capable Nepalese can go abroad to different countries is like and then like of course it's like there's lesser and lesser people who actually can do things. The more capable people are going away, so and that is one part of the problem. So for me, I believe in like going there, sitting there to do something. Like not saying that that is the solution that I'm like to the immediate coronavirus or whatever, but eventually, it's going to gear up if more and more capable young people or old people like stay in the country, like have their voices, manage to pressurize the government, like form like-minded people who have more liberal thoughts to stay and like try to like do something fresh. So for me, I definitely want to do something like this. I'm settling very soon in Nepal. So as soon as this thing is over, and then I would like to like be there, do what I can. I mean, like, of course, I'm sure everybody can do something, right? So we just try our bit and then try to do our part of what we think is correcting what we think is wrong.
I almost
think
feel like
we should be there.
Yeah, I almost feel like what Nepal is missing. Not Nepal is missing, but what Nepal needs to think differently is now, like individuals like you are doing your own private thing, like you're doing your own projects, you're doing your own, you're not actually depending totally on government for like all of your projects. You are doing more by yourself and involving people. So say if you plan to build up more turbines, you can reach out to me anytime. Like we are connected now, and we can probably get more people connected. See, like I think the Nepal needs more of this kind of like individual people who wants to do it themselves, rather than like be maybe like government will do someday, government will bring another electricity project someday, but rather you like individually you are like, I want to do this, and then getting connected with more like-minded people, more interested people on those kind of projects. Say, for example, as I said, like I would love to be part of your team who will try to build more turbines there, so any way possible that I am capable of, or if I'm able to connect you with other people. So I guess those kind of enthusiastic people like you, like other people who does it for different of their fields, are needed in Nepal. So that's one thing certainly I'm like hoping for more of the people would come out. And
Thank you.
oh yeah,
Thank you for your willingness to always be there.
no, as soon as I
me, I'm kidding.
as soon as I saw you and if like in that documentary, I'm like, Tashi, like you're doing a heroic job, like trying to save the architect, like a cultural heritage. And I'm like, how can I be involved? How can I be part of your journey? So that's what I found, and there may be thousands of people like me who wants to get in touch with you. So eventually, if we keep connected, more people, so there might be some projects that's worth a lot for a lot of people that can be implemented. So like beside, as you said, you work, of course, in preserving all of the architectural heritage. You also said you worked you are basically working for the production company for media, right? For all of those Al Jazeera, I've seen you like link up with Nat Geo and other things. So how did you came up to link yourself with those kind of companies?
So it was, good question. So for me, while I was doing my volunteer work, I came across like filmmakers and people from production houses who informed me of projects that they were running in Nepal, So, and in Ladakh in India. So I got interested, of course, and then because I mean, like, first, like after like a film was made on me about like installing the turbine, I thought, wow, because of course, like as most men grow up liking like cameras and things like this, I was just like in the beginning, like I like cameras, I like taking photos and things like this. I used to do it when I had a chance. So, and then when I installed the wind turbine, Amitabh came to make a movie on that, and then somehow coincidentally I came in touch. It was almost a coincidence, it was through some people, through friends of my wife, some people that I came directly in contact with and proposed ideas of making some kind of films that they were they had in plans. And then I like being asked if I could actually facilitate like the entire management, the making of this. So I tried, like I was always interested in doing new things. So I thought like, yeah, why not give it a try? So I tried a film and then two, and then I found out that I actually really enjoy this a lot as well. And then it was one part, something totally different from what I do. On that was actually like I was being able to make a living out of,
Okay.
So that was the main, like, what do they say, breadwinner
Yeah,
for
no,
me.
no.
And I said, wow, okay, well, this is something that I like, and then something that I could do part time when I'm free from all the other work that I'm involved in. So that's how it started. So I just got started, and my first, like, some of the first contacts where I worked for some French TVs, Then I got contacted by a good friend who runs a production company and made series for National Geographic Channel. So I facilitated a show for him. And then it was another one was for Animal Planet. He had his production company also, like, ran another show for Animal Planet that we filmed in Nepal. And then I got, like, into contact by people from BBC. We did a show for BBC in the mountains with yaks, and then
Oh,
we
that's
did, like,
like a lot of your work seems to be like based on your region, right? Like in Mustang area or like different parts of the country that you saw from Nepal side.
Yeah, mostly Mustang, but all over Nepal and even India. So in India, I've for now only worked in Ladakh, but I would be able to manage, like, a production anywhere in India. Kind of, not that I have, but I have the network to do that
Yeah,
at the
that's
moment.
amazing.
So but currently I've only been doing in Nepal. So we've been doing in, like, many places in Mustang, on the Everest region, in Gorkha, like, like being, like, going around Langtang, like around, like, south of Annapurna, many places, like
So
going to,
basically, you're
like,
you're trying to find you're finding stories for them to produce, like to bring it to the world, right? Basically, are you finding stories and you're like keeping track of all the logistics and whatever you need, and work yourself as a producer and work with equipments and so on to find the stories of like authentic Nepalese story for Nat Geo and other companies, or do they have their own ideas that they come with you that they want to work with?
Yeah, so it's all of that. So sometimes I have my own ideas that I really, really want to document, that I think is very important. So, like the art documentary on the artifact thing, and then, like, the recent documentary that I just did with National Geographic, who I won a grant from, to document the story of a village in Mustang that is moving because their glaciers are drying.
Oh,
so there's lesser and lesser water. So, like, the whole village has to move somewhere else. And for me, I thought this was, like, like,
that's a really interesting story.
very, it's a very big thing, like, when people have to leave their homes and just move and go somewhere else because they can no longer live there because there's not enough water for all of them. So I was able to do this. I just won a grant from National Geographic, so we just documented we didn't spend an entire year. Of course, we just spent, like, I spent many trips, like, following how I'd always known this village. I have friends there, and following their movement, and finally I could go document it. So it's stories that I pitch, and then also film companies that come with they have ideas. They already have a project plan, and they just, like, when they reach out to me, they say, like, yes, here's the plan. So this is what we want to document. This is what the series is about. So in Nepal, according to our series, what we're looking for is this and this we want to document. For instance, the last movie I did for was Warner Bros. So Warner Bros. TV Production Services was doing a series. So I cannot tell too much about it, but it was a documentary on, like, child characters.
Okay.
So we had to find, like, they give me their story script, and then I tried to find if, like, it's not always, like, pressing for that you have a job that you press and try to find that story so hard. So I got that catch. Like, in the beginning, I pushed a little bit on a story, and then I got it, like, of course you cannot give it your best when you're not yourself very convinced by the story. So for me, it's mostly, I've been fortunate enough to be able to get jobs that I select and do when I'm very convinced about it, and when I really think it genuinely relates to a situation in Nepal, or some community or something like this. So I did that show, so like that. Yeah. So it's stories that I pitch, and also production houses that come with stories, and then or like their scripts, and then I try to find if there is a working story or working condition for this in Nepal. And so it's a mix of all of that.
And that's amazing. Like I'm so glad like you are working to showcase like around the world how like visually presenting Nepal and its stories and bringing the stories of Nepalese people and culture and life to the world, as well as saving up historical architecture like artifacts, all the statues, and trying to bring electricity. That's why I'm like, you are doing a heroic job. You're doing like most of us
I'm
wish we could be
no,
doing
no,
to our like society. And
no. Most of you are totally capable of doing just as much as I'm doing. Like totally, it's
yeah.
just like we choose,
Yeah,
right? We
my
choose.
part in
So
here is at least trying to tell your stories, hopefully influence somebody else, or at least get people connected to get your stories and know about. As I said, like as soon as I saw you trying to do like what you did in the documentary that I watched, I felt connected to your cause, and hopefully people will get connected through this video too. And we've been talking a lot today. Really interesting. I had really fun time
really,
talking with you.
how long has it been?
Oh,
It doesn't show the time here.
yeah, I don't know. Like I thought it was like 5 minutes, but I think my system will crash if I go in longer. But yes,
Do you have a stopwatch? No.
no, I never keep time. I'm just like whatever
Okay.
it is. But I'm like really happy to and I get to talk to my like childhood friend, childhood brother. We passed our school together, and we went our own ways, and finally connecting after that many years, 15, 20 years
Yeah,
later.
like 20 years. That's a while. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
that's why I was like, oh, wait. The last time we met was in past life, right?
yeah, that's almost like a past life or two, and that's
Yeah.
amazing because of the technology and because of the works you have been doing, and hopefully like I get to see you work on more of your passion projects, trying to get more of the trying to get the stories of your village and try to help out your village as well, and maybe we'll get in touch again, trying to help out something. Oh, this is like open space now. Like it's always good to be connected, and I want to thank you
Sure.
again.
Well, thank you for the pleasure in like getting to share. Like I normally like like I've never done a podcast, or I've never been on like interviews or anything like this. And I mean, like I live more of a private life, of course. I mean, like I go to my work and do my things and things like this. But it is good to speak out and to get to share some of what I'm doing and to hear about like what you have been doing and all that. So
Definitely.
it's been great to catch up after such a long time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, we'll end the podcast here, and people need if they need to get hold of you. Do you have a contact or like information where people, if they need to be part of your project, where they can connect with you?
Mm-hmm. So for now we're just involved in our project in Ladakh, but we're phasing out soon, like eventually. So on the art conservation and the humanitarian project, and we plan to run our art like humanitarian projects in Nepal also, continue our nonprofit. Where we want to do a lot of like health projects with women and infants, and like also maybe art preservation to some extent, but more on like health and development.
Yeah.
So for those like for now, it would like the direct way to reach me would be through email. I have an email address that I can put up somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, you
I'm
can
not
send me
too
the email address. I'll put it in the description. So all the information, anything where the audience can connect to you if they stumble upon this video, would be all in the description below. And hopefully I'll get to talk with you again. But thank you so much, Tashi. Good luck on your journey and good luck on your work.
Thank you, Avas. Thank you for having me. I hope we get to talk sometime soon, like even like out of the podcast or something like. But let's see. We might cross paths again. What do you say? Cross paths.
Definitely. Thanks, man.
Electronically.